You're watching A News. Let's take a look at the top stories this hour. US President Donald Trump says he will review Iran's new peace proposal but deems it likely unacceptable. OPEC Plus is set to agree on third oil output quota hike since Hormuz closure. And a local community near a US airbase in Germany fears possible troop withdrawal. Following a 14-point plan sent to Washington by Tehran, US President Donald Trump says he will review the proposal but deems it likely unacceptable. It comes as Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps say they are fully prepared to resume the conflict.
US President Donald Trump said on Saturday that he will soon review Iran's latest proposal. It follows a 14-point plan sent by Tehran to Washington, calling for guarantees of non-aggression, the lifting of a naval blockade, and an end to the war on all fronts, including in Lebanon. Trump said in a social media post that he could not imagine the proposal being acceptable, adding that Tehran had not yet paid a high enough price. His comments come after he earlier pointed to the possibility of the US restarting airstrikes on Iran.
Doing very well with regard to Iran. Again, they want to make a deal. They're decimated. They're having a hard time figuring out who their leader is. They don't know who their leader is because their leader is gone. Their former leader, Khomeini.
Would you restart military strikes on targets?
Well, I don't want to say that. I mean, I can't tell that to a reporter. If they misbehave, if they do something bad, but right now, we'll see. But, you know, it's a possibility that could happen, certainly.
Meanwhile, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps says it is on standby for a return to war with the US, adding that a resumption of hostilities is likely, as it believes the US is not committed to any treaties. Iran's foreign ministry has also criticised the US president over what it calls the unlawful seizure of Iranian vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. Some of Tehran's vessels have been seized by the US after leaving Iranian ports, along with sanctioned container ships and Iranian tankers in Asian waters. Iran has blocked nearly all ships passing through the strait, apart from its own, since the start of the war, while Trump has imposed a separate blockade on Iranian ports.
OPEC Plus is set to approve a modest oil output hike, though it is expected to remain symbolic due to the US-Iran conflict. 7 members will raise production by around 188,000 barrels per day in June. The planned increase comes from 7 OPEC Plus members, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Algeria, Kazakhstan, Russia and Oman. The move follows months of disruption to global oil flows caused by the US-Iran conflict. Before the disruption, these countries were among the few in the group able to increase production. Despite the planned output increase, analysts say it's unlikely to have a real impact on supply until shipping routes reopen and production levels normalise. Tensions are rising once again between Washington and Berlin. The US decision to reduce its military presence in Germany has brought Donald Trump's tough stance towards European allies back into focus. Meanwhile, disagreements over the Iran war are also exposing new divisions within NATO.
The United States is preparing to withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany. The decision comes amid rising tensions between Washington and Berlin over the war with Iran. Disagreements between US President Donald Trump and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz have intensified in recent days. Merz said the United States had been humiliated in talks with Iran. Trump later strongly criticized him. Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said the decision was made on the orders of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The troop withdrawal is expected to be completed within 6 to 12 months. More than 36,000 US troops are currently stationed in Germany. The country hosts America's largest military presence in Europe. Trump also criticized Italy and Spain, saying they had failed to support the United States during the Iran conflict. He suggested troops could also be withdrawn from those countries in the future. Merz, meanwhile, said the United States had no clear strategy on Iran. He argued that Tehran was dragging out negotiations while Washington failed to achieve results. In response, Trump wrote on social media that Merz doesn't know what he's talking about. Washington had previously considered reducing troop numbers in Germany, but earlier plans were later cancelled. Germany, however, has significantly increased defence spending in recent years. The country's defence budget is expected to exceed €105 billion by 2027.
Meanwhile, NATO says it's working with the United States to understand the details of the planned drawdown of US troops from Germany. Spokesperson Alison Hart said in a social media post that the adjustment underscores the need for Europe to invest more in defence, adding that NATO remains confident in its ability to provide deterrence. Following the Pentagon's announcement to withdraw thousands of US troops from Germany, residents in the country say it could have negative impacts on the community.
Residents in Germany have expressed concern after the Pentagon announced it would withdraw 5,000 troops from the NATO ally on Friday. In the western German town of Landstuhl, near the US airbase in Ramstein, residents say the withdrawal could negatively impact the local community.
In any case, it would hit hard because this area is very dependent on it financially, and I think it would cause a great deal of damage.
Americans weren't just part of society. Some of them really did live among us quite normally. Not all of them were isolated, but they provided jobs. They rented houses and flats. I know from my family that this has also enabled many people to pay off their mortgages.
I think that's bad for the region. After all, many Americans spend a lot of money here. I think that would be bad.
Ramstein is the largest US airbase in Europe, where troops have been stationed since 1952. In southern Germany, US Army Garrison Bavaria, headquartered in Grafenwöhr, is a major training hub for forces in Europe. According to data from the Defence Manpower Data Centre, more than 36,000 active service members were stationed in Germany, divided across 5 garrisons as of December last year.
Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has denounced expanded US sanctions, calling them unjustified and harmful. Speaking in Havana, Diaz-Canel rejected claims that Cuba poses a threat to the United States, describing the country instead as a nation of peace. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Parilla said Havana would not negotiate on issues of sovereignty, independence, or its political system. The remarks come after US President Donald Trump signed an executive order widening measures against the Cuban government. China's Ministry of Commerce has issued a ban prohibiting the recognition, enforcement or compliance with US sanctions imposed on 5 Chinese companies. The companies were targeted by Washington over alleged involvement in petroleum transactions with Iran, with measures including asset freezes and restrictions on dealings. Officials say the move is based on rules designed to counter the extraterritorial use of foreign laws and reiterate opposition to unilateral sanctions not authorised by the United Nations. The ministry added that it will continue monitoring similar actions and may take further steps if needed. China has recorded a sharp rise in travel at the start of the May Day holiday, with millions of interregional trips made in a single day.
China has recorded a sharp rise in travel at the start of the May Day holiday, with more than 337 million interregional trips made in a single day. The figure marks a slight increase compared to last year, but a significant jump from the previous day, as millions began their holiday journeys. Travel picked up across multiple modes of transport, with roads carrying the vast majority of passengers, accounting for over 300 million trips. Rail also saw strong demand, with nearly 25 million journeys recorded. Waterway travel increased as well, while air travel saw a slight dip compared to the same period last year. At the same time, China's postal sector remained highly active, handling hundreds of millions of parcels, even as volumes eased slightly from the previous day. The May Day holiday, also known as International Workers' Day, runs from May 1st to May 5th and is one of the busiest travel periods in the country. During this time, millions of people travel across China to visit family, take short trips, or enjoy a break, turning the holiday into a nationwide movement.
Thousands have gathered in southwestern Nigeria for the grand finale of the World Egungun Festival, a vibrant celebration of Yoruba culture that continues to attract growing international attention.
Thousands gathered in Ibadan, a major city in southwestern Nigeria, for the grand finale of the 2026 World Egungun Festival, one of West Africa's most vibrant cultural celebrations. Masquerade performers took center stage, dancing to pounding drums and performing fire stunts, as crowds in colorful attire captured the spectacle. Cultural groups presented elaborate routines, while dignitaries, including international diplomats, watched from a VIP enclosure.
For the UK and Nigeria is huge. Nigerians make up possibly our largest, or at least our top 5 largest diaspora in the UK. And I know that there's so many links, and Nigerians in the UK bring so much spice and flavour to our culture that we are really proud. And I'm really glad that they are in the UK, and I'm really happy that I'm able to kind of see the Yoruba Festival myself.
Now in its 3rd year, the festival continues to grow in scale and international reach. Around 18,000 people attended the finale at the Obafemi Awolowo Stadium, with masquerades representing communities from across Oyo State, neighboring regions, and the Benin. Participants from roughly 10 countries also took part. The Egungun tradition is rooted in Yoruba ancestral beliefs. Masquerades are seen as representing the spirits of ancestors, connecting the living with the past through costume, music, and dance. The festival has also drawn visitors from Brazil, where the tradition remains strong among Afro-Brazilian communities. Beyond the performances, audiences witnessed striking displays, including acrobatic dances and daring stunts, adding to the intensity of the event.
We have other religions, but I think this our festival, it will give us the significance of who we are. It will help us grow our heritage, no matter the civilization and modernization.
Officials say the festival is part of wider efforts to promote culture and tourism, with plans to seek UNESCO recognition for the Egungun tradition as intangible cultural heritage.
Now we'll take a look at the key stories shaping the region. An Azerbaijani official says despite the formal end of the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict, its humanitarian impact continues to pose a serious threat, affecting the daily lives of citizens, particularly the ongoing threat posed by landmines. Assistant to the President of Azerbaijan, Hikmet Hajiev, also said in an interview in Kankendi that Azerbaijan's legal and reconstruction work in the liberated territories is proceeding in line with international law. Here's what he had to say.
Although the Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict has formally ended, the humanitarian consequences it has created remain on the agenda and continue to affect the daily lives of Azerbaijani citizens, posing an ongoing threat. Since 2020, more than 420 of our citizens have been killed or seriously injured as a result of mine explosions. Over 1 million mines were planted in Azerbaijani territories during the occupation period by the Armenian armed forces. The clearance of these mines is continuing with our own national resources. But this is a large-scale and complex task. It is also negatively affecting reconstruction and redevelopment efforts in the liberated territories. In addition, we have recently observed misleading and provocative statements from certain circles in Armenia regarding reconstruction and restoration work in Kankendi and other cities. It should be noted that large-scale reconstruction is underway in these territories. Within this process, certain illegal constructions built during the occupation period are being addressed in line with urban planning requirements under international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions. Any construction carried out by an occupying power that violates property rights and sovereignty is considered illegal. Therefore, the removal of such unlawful structures and their alignment with modern urban planning standards is a necessary step. And Azerbaijan is taking appropriate measures in this regard.
The business climate in Georgia has declined in the first quarter of 2026, according to the Business Association of Georgia. The BAG index reports a drop of 2.5 points compared to the previous quarter. The survey, conducted between March the 4th and the 17th, found that business expectations for the next 6 months fell by 4.2 points, while assessments of current conditions dropped by 1.1 points. The downturn affected almost every sector except industry. The sharpest decline was seen in construction, followed by services and trade, while the industrial sector reported improved current conditions. Tourism across Central Asia is gaining momentum, with millions of visitors choosing the region as a new travel destination. But behind this growth, competition is intensifying. While Kazakhstan continues to attract the largest number of tourists, neighbouring countries are expanding at a much faster rate, reshaping the regional landscape. News correspondent Fariza Kalimurzina reports from Kazakhstan.
Competition for tourists is intensifying across Central Asia as visitor numbers continue to rise and countries compete more actively for global attention. According to research by a Commonwealth partnership, travel to the region has grown significantly, but the distribution of tourists is beginning to shift. Kazakhstan remains the most visited destination, however, its neighbors are expanding at a much faster pace. In the first half of 2025, Kazakhstan received 7.5 million visitors, up 8.7% year-on-year. By comparison, Uzbekistan saw tourism surge by nearly 48%, while Tajikistan recorded growth of more than 30%. This means Kazakhstan still leads in volume, but the regional balance is gradually changing. Within the country, tourist flows remain predictable. The capital Astana relies largely on business travel and major events. Almaty, meanwhile, attracts a broader mix of visitors. The profile of visitors is also evolving. Most tourists still arrive from CIS countries, but there has been a sharp increase in arrivals from China. After one of the world's longest pandemic lockdowns, the number of Chinese tourists has grown roughly fivefold. Interest from India, Turkey and Europe is also steadily increasing. At the same time, countries in the region are setting long-term goals. Tajikistan, for example, aims to become a leader in ecotourism by 2030, focusing on its natural resources and strategic location. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
A complex military drill has taken place in Izmir, Turkey, involving allied forces. Special units tested combat readiness in tough terrain and confined spaces, aimed at boosting coordination and joint operational capability.
EFES 2026 exercise has concluded its cave, shelter and tunnel search training in Izmir with the participation of allied and partner countries. The training was organised by the Turkish Armed Forces at the Ege Army Command's 2 General Hudaverdi Ersoy Barracks training area. A total of 93 military personnel from 9 countries took part, including Azerbaijan, Kyrgyzstan, Romania, North Macedonia and Syria. The aim of the exercise was to improve the operational capabilities of military units in difficult terrain and conditions. In the first phase, drones were used to conduct reconnaissance of the cave and surrounding area. Special units then secured and surrounded the location. In the second phase, search teams entered the cave and carried out inspections. Evacuation of the wounded and transport of explosives were also practiced. A locally developed mine detector called Ozan produced by Tubitak Bilgem, was used to scan the cave route and mark suspicious points. According to the scenario, the terrorist elements inside the cave were neutralized and the area was fully secured. All caves, tunnels and shelters used in the exercise were subsequently destroyed and the training was successfully completed.
That's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for all the latest updates.